Back then when we started this journey, the founders of social enterprises are midlife crisis folks like me. That we want to do good, the corporate world, capitalism has turned us into an animal, therefore we want to see how we can use that same skill set, akin to what Willie is doing now as well, to see how we can do good. Now, fast forward where we are now, you see younger founders. 40% of the founders of 350 social enterprises under our membership are under 30 years old. 60% are women as well. And they are using more tech. And they are on products and services development and not on the typical employment creation model, which is as useful as it can be. There is a reflection or a statement on the book where the definition of social enterprise is still unsure. And guess what? It's still unsure at this point of time. It was done by purpose, by design, that we want it to be a ground-up initiative, and to see how our own community actually would shape that definition. It has evolved 5 years or maybe 10 years ago when I started this journey, and to that fact, Lee Po Hwa there actually started that journey with me because I was still working in a bank. I called him up, I have an application, and he says submit the application, and 48 hours later, I started my own social enterprise. So to where we are now, why there's no definition, there will be maybe a form of accreditation and subsequently definition that might lead to legislation, but I don't see that coming in the next 5-10 years. Let the invisible hand kind of works its way. The other ambiguity of how do you measure social impact, because you can't define a social enterprise without knowing how to measure social impact, and that is something that I guess I have to go back here to maybe decide on how to do this, because there's so much possibilities here, right? I'm now, what COVID has taught me is, I'm a big output guy now, I'm not a big outcome guy now. Let the big boys, let the big companies, let the government think about outcome. I'm more fixated on output. Give that man a fish. Don't need to teach them how to fish now because he needs a fish right now, especially because of COVID. So what I'm trying to say here is that the measurement that we're going to come out with are maybe output driven with a line of outcome, because my line of argument is simple. How my intervention of giving someone a job make them a better person 10 years now? How would I measure that if outcome is him a better person? But the output of him getting a job to feed himself and his family, that's what I want to look at.
Do you see a change in mindset while the ground is shifting and moving on to more upstream work, than a traditional Band-Aid type of intervention? How are they reacting, the ecosystem that you're in?
Well, the basic default of help or assistance in the social sector still, it has to be remain constant. If not, things like orphanage, halfway houses, you can't be as much innovative as you can. But these are very useful services that any society would need. I mean, how would one make a business model of running an orphanage? Just not on. So those things cannot be discounted. It still is important. So while we are talking about being innovative, needs to change and whatnot, we must also remember that we also need to enhance that portion of help in any society. Now, the upstream movement is still there. It's always been there. Let's solve the problem and don't make it to be a problem afterwards that requires solving. That has been always been the case. But I'm a bit of a skeptic here. We talk a lot about ESG and whatnot. It's just not about the money that we expect from the investors and the corporates, but also their network and their expertise. I get this beautiful quote somewhere that they say that ESG investment is akin to having a club membership, but you don't go for the exercise. Right? So I think that's very useful. And even the CEO roundtable of 120 CEOs who pledge stakeholder above shareholders, I think only 1 or 2 CEO actually got the approval of the shareholders that they're going to move towards going to stakeholder. Now again, is this all talk? Look at, what's that environmental conference again name? The recent one at Scotland? Yeah, COP26, I forget, right? So COP26. I mean, what's this thing about Pledge 2030 and Pledge 2050? When the political leaders change in 4 or 5 years' time, they sing to a different tune.